Hey everybody, Brett from AstartesGaming here, back with another episode of our Battle Brothers Let's Play. This is going to be the third and final post-commentary video, at least, and, unless anything else goes wrong, but, yeah, I don't plan on that happening, so moving forward it should be, back to business as usual. Got another pretty exciting episode today, though, at least in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to this. Hopefully you guys are too. Let's go ahead and jump in and do some commentary. So we left off after having fought those, what are they called? Not necrosavants, Noxaires. We fought the Noxaires, and then we decided to take this job to go on a patrol. And so we headed from Otterdorf to Lutendock over to Tiefenstadt, or at least we got sort of in that general area. And we came across some orc scouts. So we're going to fight them today. First, we're going to take a look at our characters here, make sure everybody's properly equipped. And I think we're going to go ahead and leave Arn in the hopes that we can level him up. Since Mieszko has healed, but he's already one of the highest level characters that we have, so it'd be nice to get some of these level 1s up to level 2 or level 3. And then aside from that, we've only got the wounds on Balder and Vlad. Vlad, however, being an archer, isn't going to be too affected by that. He can, of course, just sit back and snipe for the most part, so his initiative isn't really going to be a big deal. And then I think I'm trying to figure out where we can fit in our new guy there, but we didn't really have anywhere for him to go. So here I'm just hoping and crossing my fingers that all 70 of these orcs are going to count toward our head count. And they do end up counting. The way it works, and I think what I am explaining at some point in this video, is that when you take these missions, they will spawn in enemies along the roads for you to fight. And if you fight them, you will definitely get those heads counted toward your total. But there's other parties that won't. But in the case of this mission, they will count. So they have a pretty good high ground advantage against us here. So we're definitely not going to advance. We're going to hold our ground, because if we move forward, we're going to be fighting uphill. So we're pretty content to just sit where we are and make them come down to us. However, I think when I originally recorded this, I was sort of lamenting the fact that it was nighttime, and that I should have waited to take the battle, because it's going to mitigate the effectiveness of my archers, as you can see there. None of them, or none of the crossbowmen anyway, had range to attack the orcs, and the archers are going to have pretty bad accuracy on the ones that they can hit. So our skirmishers are sort of seeing the same thing here. Instead, we're just going to spear wall and sort of wait it out until they come closer. I don't think Bram has a target either. No. They're going to be out of range for everybody. With the vision penalty to their helmets, the poor range of the throwing weapons, and then, nighttime, it's just not really going to work out in that regard. And Jorah, with his awesome initiative that he never gets to take advantage of, he would be a good character to give dodge to, because he has extremely good initiative, and so that would make him like impossible to hit with any sort of ranged weapon. Not that that's really a problem for him anyways, but it wouldn't hurt. And then let's see, I believe that is the 6th orc, so there's still one unaccounted for, if I'm counting right. Yes, I see 6. So as battles with orcs go, this one is pretty tame, I guess I would say. This guy didn't even try to hold on for a charge. He tried to go right in and paid for it. And then Bram managed to get him with an axe as well. Callie might be able to get him with both there. Oh, he only got one too. And then there's the kill for Christopher. It's always nice when you get orcs without shields, because you can really focus fire them effectively. And then the rest of these guys all have shields. So actually, no, the guy in the back doesn't. But yeah, we're going to maintain our spear wall, obviously. And Casper, again, with his terrible, terrible fatigue, isn't going to be able to spear wall. So we're going to find ourselves in a fight there. Instead, I'll shield wall just to protect him and hopefully mitigate any potential stun. And then Arn with a lucky shot there, destroying that orc's armor, even despite his shield. And again, Jorah waiting till the end of the turn. They're going to skirmish a bit with us, but it's really not too big a deal. That orc decides to go around Casper and instead attack the guy immediately above him, who didn't have his shield raised, and so he is stunned, unfortunately. Arn's going to fire his crossbow since he can't change weapons and attack with the pike on the same turn, and then use the rest of his turn to take the pike out. And then we're going to take a shot there, hoping to get by that shield. Unfortunately, we don't. Christopher is going to try to get lucky here again with another kill, and he does not get it. Jacques is going to maintain his spear wall, as is Sinric and Merrick. Although I think I'm considering moving in against that guy, I end up not doing it. And then Bram's going to put his axes to use, as is Callie, hoping for the kill here, but he's not going to get it. And then Vlad is just going to pick a target. I don't remember where he goes. I guess he goes with the 42 there, and he does get a kill. Unfortunately, Casper is still too tired to spear wall, so all he can do is raise his shield or basically rest up. So I decided to rest him to hopefully gain some of that fatigue back. And looks like our friend there gets another stun. I can't remember his name with the striped shield. But yeah, he's been taking a lot of hits. Actually, Casper was the one that got stunned there. Excuse me. Arn will land a hit on the shieldless guy. And Jacques is going to actually break that orc's morale with his spear wall there. Still got 2 orcs skirmishing. And we've obviously got a lot of guys skirmishing. Christopher is going to go for the kill there. Unfortunately, it bounces off the shield. Alfred, that's his name, Alfred. Alfred's going to get his melee weapon out and then protect himself. Jacques is going to actually, I think, move forward here. Yeah, he's going to move forward to engage that guy. We get a headshot, which is not exactly what we needed there, but it's better than nothing. And then here, I'm debating whether or not I should rush this orc. He does have his skirmishing weapon out, so if I move to engage him, he's going to have to waste a turn swapping his weapon, and so we decide to go ahead and rush him. Vlad's going to go for that kill in the back again, and he does get it. And then Merrick is going to sort of go for the surround here. His morale is broken, so we don't really need to put any more attention on him. He's going to kill himself trying to flee us. And then Bram's going to do the same to this guy, forcing him to waste a turn changing his weapons out. Callie's going to swap his and then move in to engage because he can only move so far. And then Jorah has to basically decide what fight he wants to join. And since he can't attack this turn on any of them, and the one to the top is no particular threat, he's going to move into this spot that will allow him to attack the orc to his right and to the bottom. And so he's going to swap weapons to his club. That one's going to take a shot at Casper. Arn is going to continue attacking the one on the low ground. And then Christopher has to basically decide who he wants to attack. There's really no easy targets here because everybody is engaged. And so he's going to move forward instead and take a quick shot at that one and actually kill him. And so everybody that we moved into position there was sort of wasted. But we have more than enough men on every single orc here to where it doesn't really matter. Casper is going to keep trading with the guy on him since everybody else can sort of deal with the orc in front of him. And Alfred manages to do so. And then Jacques is going to move in to help him out. Sinric is going to sort of start working his way over there as well. Callie too. And Callie, in engaging the orc in front of Bram, actually is going to break that guy's morale. And so take him out of the fight. Merrick's going to go for a surround just to make sure that he doesn't get away. And then Bram is going to move toward the only fight remaining. And then we've got a couple of guys that can't quite get into combat yet, so their turns are going to be more or less wasted. Arn, however, can attack, and so he's going to attempt to there. Unfortunately, it gets blocked. But we block the enemy's attack right back, and then Alexander's going to get into a little bit better firing position there. Christopher is going to have to circle all the way around, so he's probably done for this combat. Cindric, however, can move in to start working on a surround. Unfortunately, we've got a lot of spears on this guy, and so our damage output isn't the best. Our axes are having a hard time getting over there. But Merrick is going to keep working on that guy. And it looks like I'm just going to finish him off with Callie so that I don't need to worry about keeping him in anybody's attack zone. Vlad is going to get the kill, and that's the end of that fight. So we got 2 level ups, Alfred and Vlad. Unfortunately, Arn did not level up again. Oh, Bram as well. Bram has to be pretty far up there at this point. He only got, 91 XP because he didn't really get any kills. Although he did do quite a bit of damage there, 243. We're going to grab all the loot and leave the strange meat behind. And that's the end of that fight. So we get 7 toward our head count there for a maximum of 25. We're going to level Bram up. He's level 8 now, which I believe is tied for the highest, although Mieszko beat him there, and I think somebody else did as well. We're going to give him a bit more resolve. I think we're going to end up giving him some range skill as well, because that's a pretty good roll, and everything else is a pretty poor roll. And then I have to decide what else I want to give him, which I don't remember what I ended up going with. I was reluctant to take the fatigue because his fatigue was already so good, but his rolls were so poor for everything else, it was difficult to justify anything. So I think, I went with range defense, which actually wasn't a bad roll, but I think range defense is typically 2 to 4, so that was like an average roll, but again, everything else was pretty bad, so we have to decide on a perk, and I don't recall what I go with here. I'm not a huge fan of any of the bottom-most perks, or like the top tier ones. Indomitable could be really good if it were like a passive ability, or if it took effect on its own, but since you actually have to activate it, it becomes really difficult to use because you need to basically predict what the enemy's going to do. And I imagine, or at least in my experience, if you use the perk, you typically don't get targeted by the enemy. So it's basically like saying, hey, don't hit me, and they'll just target somebody else. Unless, of course, you're the only target, then they will. But I think instead I ended up taking rotation. I didn't take flail mastery because he probably isn't going to keep the flail for the remainder of this playthrough. Flails aren't bad weapons, but they're not exactly top tier. And so once we start moving into the top tier weapons, he's probably going to end up with like a warhammer or something. So I figured it would be best to wait on that and eventually give him a different perk. So we give him rotation instead, so that way anybody on either side of him who's injured, he can swap in for and maybe bail them out. And then Alfred's going to get student first, as we always do. We're going to take some HP, I believe, as well as some morale, or not morale, resolve. And then we go with range skill, since he is using skirmishing weapons. And we, of course, need to remember to equip those. And that just leaves us with Vlad, who's level 6 already. It seems like we just brought him on, but I guess it's been a while. What did we choose for his perk? I always kind of struggle with deciding how I should level up archers. Once they get archery mastery, everything just sort of opens up, and it's difficult to decide what. I think I decide to go with his skills first. So I give him range skill, fatigue, and I believe some hit points. Although his defense rolls were actually pretty good there. Well, at least the ranged one was. The melee defense one, he has a couple stars in. He could have, rolled a lot better than that. But I think we give him hit points. And then for the perk, I think it came down to either quick hands or footwork. Quick hands, of course, allowing him to swap weapons without wasting any AP, and then footwork allowing him to back out of attack zones without incurring attacks of opportunity. And so it's sort of a toss-up as to which one would be more effective, because being able to switch to his melee weapon when he's engaged in melee combat could be really, really useful, and maybe save his life. But alternatively, being able to use footwork and back out of attack zones and just fire his bow at the enemy could, be equally as effective. So it's kind of difficult there. They're both sort of filling a similar role in terms of survivability. But I think we end up going with footwork. Because, obviously, being an archer, he's not as well suited to melee combat. And so it's sort of better to just keep him out of the melee combat rather than just trying to make him a little bit more effective in it. But quick hands is definitely something that will give him probably as his next level up. So now we need to stop in Tiefenstadt in order to, check that off our list. And then I believe we end up hearing a rumor in the tavern here along the lines of what we had heard in the previous tavern that we visited. So yeah, a bunch of lowlifes tried raiding a caravan in the steppe far from here. They all got slain, but rumor has it that some valuable weapon went missing during the fight. The caravan guards have been searching for it frantically. So it's sort of a different take on what we heard before, but it's the same story roughly. A very valuable or legendary weapon, and something happening in a steppe far from here. And then we throw a couple more gold to see if we can hear anything else, and we don't. So we end up leaving. And what I decide to do is, since this area looks sort of steppe-ish, we decide to head out here and maybe see if we can figure out where they might be talking about. Unfortunately, we do not find what we're looking for here, but we do find something of interest. And so I'm sort of heading out to basically discover this entire peninsula. And so there's nothing other than that one castle. And it's not what we're looking for, but I wasn't entirely sure. Like, I couldn't be sure because of how vague the description was. And since this didn't really say if it was bandits or what, we don't really know what could be there. So I figured it would be worth going ahead and trying it. But I believe because we were so unsure about what we were about to face, we end up putting Arn into reserve and putting Mieszko back in, so that we've got our A team going. And then I think that's actually the only major change. We leave him with a pike and then we just give Mieszko a different one. And I believe that is it. Yeah. So into the fight we go. So I was pretty nervous when I saw that there were 21 enemies up against us. However, zombies are probably the weakest enemy that you can encounter. It's difficult to say, actually, because they can be fairly strong. It really depends on what equipment they end up with. If they have a little bit of armor, obviously they're a little bit harder to deal with, and if they have a decent weapon, they can use it effectively. But if they're in rags and just empty-handed, obviously they're not much of a threat. However, in enough numbers, like they are now, they can be very dangerous. So it's sort of up to our spear wall to try to hold them off here. And also, I think at this point I'm trying to figure out how to deal with the terrain. I believe we end up moving up one tile so that I can occupy 2 high ground rather than just the one. And then one person in our backline can step up to the high ground that we're vacating. And that way, anybody who decides to take the high ground in front of us will be fighting 2 other people on level footing, rather than, them stepping up onto 2 high ground and fighting people downhill. So basically that one spot of high ground isn't going to give them any advantage, which is, going to be to our favor. And then, getting an archer up onto high ground is going to do good things for us as well. So at this point, we've accounted for most of the enemies, but I'm still a bit concerned because given their numbers, it's difficult to tell just how many we're dealing with. I could sit there and count them, but not when the camera's jumping around like it is with me doing the post-commentary. And so there's a couple of enemies that, again, we still haven't seen yet, and I was really concerned that we might be facing a necromancer. And we wouldn't really know until we killed something and he raised it, because obviously he's going to hang back out of our attack range, definitely, and then potentially our line of sight as well. But we don't end up seeing a necromancer here, luckily. However, we do end up seeing a couple of Noxairs, and so I was concerned about that because given the enemy's numbers, there was going to be a lot of corpses on the battlefield, and so a lot of potential for us to end up in a situation like we were in the last episode, where we had just a complete disaster in regard to dealing with Noxairs. And so yeah, we get pretty lucky in this one, I would say. In terms of the way that this army was built, it definitely could have been a lot worse. All the zombies, for the most part, were fairly weak. There's a couple in a little bit of chainmail and like leather, as you see down there, but none of them had any sort of particularly threatening weapon. They're all tier 1 weapons except for the hand axe at the bottom there. And I think we end up collecting a couple of those chainmail hoods for our archers. They're actually slightly better than the ones that we have. We have like the rusty ones. These are like the pristine ones. And so I think they give us like an extra +5 or +10 damage on top of what those have. But I don't know that we get all of them. I think we get 1 or 2, but we don't get 3 unless I'm remembering wrong. Anyway, we're sort of vindicated here when we kill that zombie and he ends up not coming back. However, he does I think raise himself at one point, because zombies are known to do that, but he doesn't get raised by a necromancer, which was a huge relief for me at the time, because again, I had no idea. There's still, again, 2 enemies that we couldn't account for. And so I think at this point I was still pretty nervous, but after that point right there, I think that's what I was gesturing to at the edge of the map. I was fairly certain at that point that there wasn't any necromancers, because they would have raised one of those zombies if they had been present, because they had 2 opportunities to do it, and they generally will do it at the first opportunity that they get. So yeah, I was feeling pretty relieved there. We've dealt with a few more of them. Basically, they're throwing themselves against our spear wall and failing miserably. That, or they're wounding themselves against our spear wall, and then I'm killing them with ranged missile fire. But yeah, our spear wall is holding fairly well, with the exception, of course, of the right flank, which never even managed to get going. He actually didn't get to raise his spear before they engaged him. So, unfortunate, but now that he's sort of surrounded, everybody else is still protected by the spears. And luckily, the rest of our spearmen have enough fatigue to basically continue spearwalling, not indefinitely, but pretty close, for enough turns to make it, more than viable. I don't know what I'm doing here. Something about those 2 and attacking that guy, I don't remember. I think I'm deciding like order of attack, like who's the biggest threat. So I think, yeah, it was something like that. Like I was gonna attack the pickaxe guy with Casper, because that's somebody that only he can target, whereas the guy above the pickaxe guy with the bludgeon can be targeted by Alfred. So there was no reason for Casper to attack him as well. Land a couple of axe throws there, and then we're gonna go for a kill here. Actually, no, just some damage. I think we end up going for the guy with the long knife there. Nope, the bludgeon. And we destroy his armor. And we also find another Noxair. Interestingly enough, there was 3 of them. Kind of a weird mixture of enemies, but they are undead, so they can sort of group up as they like. Here comes some zombies, 2 of them, but when they come back severely weakened, so they're not really a threat. I did, however, find it interesting that the Noxair is sort of held back. Typically, being beasts, they're aggressive, just like direwolves. They'll just charge in at the first opportunity, but they actually like held back and waited as sort of like a second wave, which is not something I've ever really observed them doing. Jorah is going to get a kill there, and then Mieszko is engaged in melee combat, so he's going to have to pull the pike out and start targeting that guy. Luckily, the guy doesn't have a shield or anything, so we've got pretty much guaranteed hits on everybody in that area. It's just a matter of how much damage it'll take to put them down. I think I end up targeting somebody else. No, I do go for him. And that was a pretty good hit, too. I mean, that nearly one-shotted his chainmail armor, which is pretty solid armor. I mean, that's equivalent to what my archers are wearing right now. I think it's a slightly better version of what my archers are wearing. But still good. It's still, you know, chainmail compared to, like, leather. And then I'm also concerned here about letting the Noxairs eat the corpses, so I was sort of deciding who I should target, and I end up trying to go for the kill there. Unfortunately, we miss. But Alexander, I think, is going to take another attempt at it, and he will get him. But that does just put another corpse on the ground for the remaining Noxairs, so I have to be careful of that as well. Down here, Casper is surrounded, but he's hanging in there. He's got pretty good armor, and he's got his shield raised, so he's difficult to hit, and even more difficult to damage. And then it looks like the entire enemy army is starting to sort of abandon the left flank and start folding in on our right, because it seems like they don't think they can get past Merrick, so they're all going to just go after Casper. Sinric is in combat here, but he's going to free himself up. However, he just opens himself up to more enemies by doing that. Alfred is going to try to kill that guy and miss, and then Merrick is going to keep his spear wall going. Vlad needs to choose a target, and we end up just trying to help out with all the enemies surrounding our right flank. Casper is going to miss his only attack there. Bram's finally going to engage in melee, and I actually decide to advance him here, I believe. We end up pinning them on the low ground, if I'm not mistaken. So he sort of spearheads out onto the spot of high ground there, and, you know, traps two enemies in his attack zone in doing so. However, I am, I believe, concerned about opening up my archers to somebody moving through at that point. Oh, I guess I don't. I thought I moved him forward. I think I might next turn, but I'm pretty sure he spearheads out at some point, because these guys just sort of hang back, and I get impatient with it, especially given how weak they are and how effective we've been against them. Unfortunately, they completely overcome my spear wall there through their revival, so we do lose those attacks. And then we get a big miss by Jorah there. Mieszko is bleeding and trying desperately to get rid of all the enemies surrounding him and Casper. Lands a pretty good hit, destroying the enemy's armor and finally cutting into his HP a bit. And here come the rest of them, just trying to get engaged however they can. They've recommitted to our right flank now that the spear wall has been surpassed. And Alexander's still firing his crossbow. He could switch to his axe at any point, but given that the crossbow gives me more potential targets, it seemed worthwhile keeping it out. And so at this point, the numbers are almost even. I think I'm going to break here, and I'll come back a little bit later in the fight, because this is a fairly lengthy fight, given how many enemies we have to deal with, and you know, how many turns we have to go through. Okay, so Bram finally spearheads out. It's only been like a couple seconds, by the way, but yeah, Bram finally does that little spearhead move that I talked about, splitting the enemy in two effectively. And then Kali's gonna get a kill. Oh, just missed a kill there. Let's see. Who do we end up targeting here? Casper's done a pretty impressive job keeping himself in one piece despite so many enemies on him. He's been, you know, basically bogged down for the entire fight, and managed to keep his HP and armor up fairly well despite that. He has taken some damage in both, but he's still alive, still has armor, so can't really fault him for that. Jorah nearly one-shots a zombie, and then Mieszko finishes the one off who had been engaging him. Meanwhile, they just continue to sort of paw at us ineffectually. Yeah, again, not really doing anything. Trying to bite us through heavy shields and whatnot, swinging low-tier weapons at us. But yeah, their numbers are slowly dwindling. We've got them even now. And I end up moving Christopher to high ground just so he has a little bit better shot at all of our potential enemies. End up targeting the spearman there because otherwise Bram would be left with... No, I mean, he would be able to target either one. I think I did that because one of them had armor and a weapon and the other didn't, so he wasn't really a threat. We're going to continue to sort of circle the wagon here, bringing Jacques around the flank of the enemies to the lower half. And Alexander's going to swap weapons and take a shot at that guy, ends up dropping him. Alfred's going to continue his fight with this overalls guy. It's like a butcher's apron or something, maybe. And Cynric is going to spear wall the gap there. Don't know why I did that. There wasn't really a reason to do it. And then Bram's going to get a kill there. But yeah, I don't know if I thought that somebody might move into there, but obviously the pitchfork guy does not need to close in to fight, so he wouldn't, bother. Over here, there's some people that are still trying to get into combat, but not up there. So that was a wasted turn, basically. I should have just moved him down and in. Jorah's going to have to move to fight here, so I think I move him back. Nope, forward, okay. And we finish off the other guy in the butcher's apron. And Mieszko kills yet another enemy who is trying to surround him. If Arn had been in, I don't know if he would have fared as well, but he would have gotten some XP for sure. And so Mieszko's got another guy on him. Pitchfork guy's attempting to attack us and not doing very well. Christopher is going to take a shot at the balding guy with the long hair and put him down. And then Jacques is going to, unfortunately, have to move straight in there because he could not squeeze past that tall, shrub tree thing. Still they're, attacking ineffectually. And then Alfred's going to swing over here to sort of present a new front along the bottom. Alexander's actually going to move down here to help out since the other flank is pretty much taken care of at this point. And I think Casper's going to go for the kill there. Unfortunately, he misses. Cynric has no target, so he's going to engage the pitchfork guy face to face, as is Callie. Callie's actually going to take a swipe at him, destroying his armor in the process. Vlad's going to shoot the guy with the pitchfork and kill him, while Merrick's going to kill the guy who is adjacent to him, and then continue to surround the pitchfork guy. Bram has to sort of figure out which fight he wants to join, so we're going to move him to the bottom. Actually, no, we're just going to wait. I think I figured that they were going to regen a couple of them, so it made sense to sort of stay in that dense area, just to make sure that they didn't come back in huge numbers and surround somebody we didn't want surrounded. That or, trap one of my archers in melee combat. Jacques is going to get another kill there. Again, them attacking without much success. Christopher's going to shoot this guy, kill him again. Alexander's going to put him down, and Bram can finally move. He's going to engage the spearman in the broken mail there. And Casper, still hanging in there, is going to again miss an attack. His fatigue right now is really limiting his effectiveness. But if he can stay alive, that's more than we can say than a couple of people that have been in that position. So I guess we have to give him that. But yeah, we're definitely going to continue to focus on his fatigue so that he can be more effective in spear walling and offense, as well as raising his shield and keeping himself alive. So at this point we only have 3 zombies left If we can kill all 3 of them before they res anymore, then we win. And so we've got 2 down almost immediately. It's just a matter of dealing with the pitchfork guy. And he's not too much trouble, obviously. He's already been downed once. Bram's going to move in despite not having enough left to attack. And then Cynric is going to finish him off. And so there's the fight. Casper manages to level up. And Alexander as well. I think Alexander is level 8 too, if not level 9. We do find some really interesting stuff though. We get an ornate tome, some gemstones, and some crowns, as well as only 1 male coif, unfortunately. But we do get another hand axe, which we didn't really need, and then a bunch of weapons that we definitely don't need. But the gemstones in the book I found incredibly interesting. I'm kind of curious as to what we can do with those, despite just selling them. We do end up selling the gemstones, however. The book I think I keep, just to make sure it's not valuable in some other way. We also get credit for all of those kills toward our kill count. So we managed to max out that counter up to 25, which is great because it means we're going to get the maximum amount of pay out of that. So into Tiefenstad, where we are going to hit the marketplace and sort of sell off a lot of the loot that we have. It looks like they're offering us up to 1,400 for the gemstones, which is actually 300 more than they're worth. And then the ornate tome is worth quite a bit as well, 750. But I was a bit reluctant to sell it in case it was maybe more valuable elsewhere, or again had some other value to it. And then we have a lot of weapons that we're just going to get rid of here. I think I keep those 2, yeah. And then we're going to give somebody a new hat, basically, because it's 80 versus, what was it, 70? 70 or 75, if I remember right. So, yeah, a small upgrade, but an upgrade nonetheless. Although it looks a bit odd with that armor, now that I'm looking at it. The headgear is like a brand new set of mail, and the armor is like a very old, rusted, tattered set. Either way, we're going to head on back to Otterndorf to collect our pay, which is going to be pretty considerable given that we managed to get all 25 there. Okay, so we managed to get 1,500 crowns for that job, which is pretty good considering that it wasn't all that difficult for us to do. That leaves us at 5,500 crowns. Not sure what we're doing here. I think we're ending the episode because it ran on a bit long. So, anywho, I will cut it off here as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I had a great time playing some Battle Brothers with you, and I look forward to seeing you guys back here for the next episode.